Hello. So, my kids are in bed. So, I figured I would talk about something that I find isn't extremely talked about. And it's kind of taboo to talk about it, which would be postpartum and prepartum depression. And I know that postpartum depression is something that's being a lot more talked about now. But prepartum depression, I don't know if it's a big thing or if it's really like a real thing for most people. But I would like to share my experiences with it and answer questions that people might have. Sorry about that. Um, so my struggles with postpartum depression started after my oldest was born about, well, almost 7 years ago now. And things just weren't working the way they were. And as a young first time mom, I didn't know about postpartum. I didn't understand what it was, how to recognize symptoms or anything. But looking back, it's really quite obvious to me. Excuse me. Um, I made sure my son's needs were met, but we slept a lot. Our hours were wonky, like, sometimes we wouldn't wake up until, like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we wouldn't go to bed till 12 or 1 at night. Um, some days it was just really hard to get up out of bed, well, most days it was hard to get up out of bed. I was very lucky that none of mine extended towards my child or that I wanted to hurt him or anything. All I wanted to do was love him, but I also had another condition on top of that called an underactive thyroid, which made everything else worse. And I was going through relationship issues, um, and didn't have the supports in place that I had wanted. So I hit postpartum really hard and fast, and I was fine for the first 6 months. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, that's not possible. Postpartum hits sooner than that. No, it doesn't. Sometimes it can hit it when your baby is 18 months old. So don't let people tell you that it's not postpartum depression because your baby's too old. There is no such thing, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but from what I've went through, I can totally understand that postpartum depression is more than just the first 6 months after your child was born. In my case, I hit it around 6 months. I was at a low point. I didn't wanna get up and clean, I didn't wanna cook, I didn't wanna eat. I looked after my child, and whenever he slept, I was in bed. And I started going down a bad path, and doing things that I normally wouldn't have done. And at that point, like, I was already, like, screaming out for help and asking people for help, but it just seemed to fall on deaf ears. Um I was 20 and the kid's father was 17 at the time. So he was at a very interesting part in his life, and I was in a very tough part in my life of deciding where I wanted to be, like trying to figure out should be going to college right now, but I had a baby. But at the same point, like I wanted him. I had literally chosen to have my son and go to my son's father and be like, "Hey, you wanna try 1 month?" Literally 1 time. And if nothing happens, I'm gonna have the IUD next month. Well, bam, I got pregnant 1 month once. So, again, don't let people tell you it takes more than once to get pregnant because I went on birth control and got pregnant 2 weeks later. Literally my life when it comes to pregnancies. Um, and I had a smooth pregnancy, like, it was literally by the books, and that's what the doctor said, except I had no morning sickness. Um, but just afterwards, with my mental health wasn't stable because I wasn't sure if the relationship I was in was going to be a good, stable relationship in the long term. Spoiler alert, it's it wasn't. Not to talk trash about the father or anything, but it's just that relationship for us, it wasn't a good thing. Um, and it just, things don't always work out the way you plan. I was stuck living in a small little one bedroom that was more of a bachelor pad. And it's just everything in my life wasn't where I had wanted it or expected it to be. I had worked up to giving birth to this child, hoping that I would have enough stuff saved, enough time, enough money that when I went off work, excuse me, to have my son, that I thought I would be okay. But you can literally have everything and still hit postpartum depression. You can seem happy every day, which I am. I have always been an overly happy person. Even now, when there's a lot of stuff going on, like I'm still happy. I love my life. You can be depressed and still love your life. Yeah, a lot of people don't think that. Um, but I really struggled with postpartum depression up until he was about 13 months old. And unfortunately, at that point, my postpartum depression was so bad and my depression was so bad and just everything didn't seem to get better that my son was removed from my care, which then added depression. And uh it took me almost 2 years to pull out of that funk. I still saw my child. I was still as active as I could be, but the postpartum depression just took everything out of me. And then when you get regular depression on top of postpartum depression, that already not wanting to get out of bed, that literally I was drinking as much alcohol as I could get my hands on. I was using different kinds of drugs just to numb myself because I was so depressed that when I found out I was pregnant with my second child, I hit a brick wall. And that's when the postpartum just went away. Like it was getting better slowly, and I was seeing my child and I was working on things. And I wouldn't say it was postpartum much past 16 months because things were starting to go better and look up. Um, but when I found out I was pregnant with my second child, had a lot of pregnancy guilt, which is again another thing that a lot of people don't talk about. I was guilty that I was pregnant again because I had an older child that didn't live with me, that wasn't in my home, that I wasn't good enough for at that point. But when I found I was pregnant again, all of that kinda changed. Yes, I still was a little bit depressed, but again, that got better. I got myself into safe, suitable housing. I got myself mentally just I was talking to people and doing things and just making sure that I could do better. So, fast forward to when my son was about 4 years old, I had went for custody and got him back, and I had 2 kids on my own. And I was going to college full time, and I was trying to make something of my life. And then, bam, I found out I'm pregnant with my daughter. I had just gotten a job, had just had a whole bunch happen with my first year of college, and I hit a slump. I just and I know it's gonna sound horrible. I just at that point, I did not want to be pregnant. I did not want to go have an abortion because they're not right for me, but I every being of me cried because I didn't wanna be pregnant. It was messing with a relationship that was already falling apart. It Everybody was saying, "Oh, you did it purposely. Oh, you did it purposely." No, I was on birth control trying to prevent this pregnancy. Plus, I had a surrogacy journey lined up that I was supposed to be doing, and I was supposed to be having a baby for somebody else. And when this kind of fell in between and wrecked the rest of my plans of getting my family set up and in a good place, that's when I hit the prepartum depression, or that's what I call it because it was well, it was in the beginning of my pregnancy, before birth. So I don't exactly know what they would call that, but I was depressed because I was pregnant. I would sit there and cry and be like, "Why is everybody saying I did this purposely? Why do people not believe me?" When I literally say, "I did not want this right now. I did not want to be pregnant." I accepted it because it was my responsibility. Yes, I was on birth control, and we were using the pull-out method. I guess the one time we didn't, I got pregnant with our daughter, and I love her to death. She's the light of my life. I'm so happy and lucky to have her now. But at the time, honestly, there was many times that I checked the bathroom and was hoping I was bleeding or spotting or that I was gonna miscarry because it was so detrimental to my health at that time. I couldn't get over the fact that even when I tried to prevent myself from getting pregnant, it happened anyway. And then having my ex and his family be like, "You planned this, you planned this." Meanwhile, I did not. I literally had went to my doctor the month before and asked him to change my birth control because I was missing periods every other month. And he said it was normal and checked my hormones levels and checked to see if I was pregnant and everything was normal. So what can I really do? I kept taking the birth control thinking everything was fine. And then just randomly one day out of the blue while my ex was home because he's a long haul trucker, he's not home very often. I decided to pee on a stick, and literally I peed on it, put it on the counter, like, flushed and all that, and looked at it maybe 30 seconds later, and there was already the first line that tells you you're pregnant. It was just, like, just starting to touch the second line, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I did not expect that, like, I'm still shaking thinking of it, and I just I took it so hard, and I told my ex, I was like, "I'm pregnant." I was a wreck, and he was over there, "Oh, it's fine. We'll deal with it. It is what it is," kinda thing. Um, so that was it was really hard mentally. Again, like, I had 2 kids, so I had to get out of bed. I forced myself to get out of bed. I had to force myself to clean and keep everything looking good, but while they were in daycare and I wasn't working, I was in my bed crying my eyes out. Just hoping for a sign, hoping that something would let me know that this was meant to be. Because I had so many big plans ahead of me and I wanted to go back to college. And I wanted to like do my second year and I wanted to just get my life ahead before I had more kids. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick. Um, and with that pregnancy, with the other two, I bonded with my babies around 18 to 20 weeks. With her, I couldn't, and I couldn't, and I couldn't, and it wasn't until we found out that she was a girl that I had started to connect to her, and to some people, that might not make sense, but I had 2 boys before her. They were very strong-willed, and I loved them to death, but I just wanted a little me because she was gonna be my last baby, because my then partner and I had talked about it and said this was our last kid. We had 3, um shoot, my battery's, dying. We had 3, or we're gonna have 3, and that was enough. That was our family complete. Um, so, that was weighing on my mind as well. Like, I've always pictured myself with a big family. Like, growing up, I wanted, like, 5 or 6 kids. It's not realistic, it's not really what I think I want now, but that was my dream then. Um Anyway, fast forward 9 months, I give birth to her, everything's good for 1 or 2 weeks, and then something was off. Um, my now ex was running off with my roommate, and they were disappearing off for hours, and I just started getting depressed, and when one depression starts, the other one starts with me. So, again, like, I was struggling to get out of bed. My mental health was failing. I was fighting with my father that lived with me and my roommate that lived with me and fighting with the children's father, and it just I was in, like, a self-destructive spiral because just things weren't right. I could tell that something was going on. Um, and again, I sat in bed crying, literally crying to my roommate that I wanted to fix the relationship. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. That I wanted to fix our relationship and that I would do anything for us to be able to be a good, happy, healthy family again. And it turns out that she was sleeping with him. When my daughter was 3 weeks old, she started sleeping with him and then lying to me about it and telling me that nothing's wrong, that he loved me to death, that he just wanted the fighting to stop and all this other stuff. And when our daughter was about 2 months old, he broke up with me and started dating her. So I went down a very depressed path for a while, trying everything I did to get him back and to break them up and to be like a family again. Eventually it worked and we got back together, but I wasn't happy and something was still wrong. My daughter is now 19 months old. I left him when she was about 15 months old because, again, I knew he was still lying and cheating. And I've been doing good. Honestly, yes, I still have moments of depression. There's a lot going on, and I don't think depression ever goes away. But I have what I consider like some days I'm depressed, some days I'm not. Some days I wake up and I'm like, it's going to be a great day. And other days I wake up just knowing. Um, so, if anybody out there that's watching, if you think you have prepartum depression or postpartum depression or any form of depression at all, you're not alone. I have an inbox. I don't know how to check it. I don't know how, but I will figure it out. I'm here to talk anytime. I've been fighting depression since I was 12 years old. And if you have other kinds of depression, it can make you a higher risk for postpartum and prepartum depression. And it's not something you should have to go through alone. And I want to make it so people don't want to have to, bleh, so that people don't have to go through it alone. People should not have to lose their children because there's not adequate supports for people with prepartum and postpartum depression. It's not fair to anybody. And the system's already out there to take children from young parents, it seems, and instead of helping people, just removing kids. At least that has been my experience with child protection. Luckily, now I have an amazing support system. And when I speak up and say, look, I need to go for a walk or watch a movie or just have some time to myself, my system is there. But I know there's other people out there that aren't as lucky as I am. And I just hope that I can help somebody or support somebody or convince somebody to go talk to their doctor or talk to their friends or talk to whoever they feel comfortable with talking with. And don't let yourself fall as far as I did. Yes, it's hard to fight, but if you fight, you can come up on top. Is it easy? No. But I can guarantee you it's more than worth it. But I have to go. My computer's about to die. So, like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. And we will talk to you all later. And I'm also looking for suggestions for any pregnancy or surrogacy related questions. Maybe my birth stories, maybe the process of surrogacy and how it starts. I have a lot of amazing things going on in my life right now that I have created myself and done myself as a single mother of 3 kids. So if I can do it and I'm 27, anybody can. Bye.